What do you remember about your childhood? Your mom and dad, brothers and sisters, hot summers, snowy winters, school friends, and sports teams? Well, our story tonight is about a man who grew up in Kelowna during the 40s and 50s. His name is Tun Wong, one of 11 children and one of the only Chinese-Canadian families in Kelowna. With what we know about Chinese-white relations in the 20th century, what might that have been like? Find out tonight on Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Welcome to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with our storyteller today, Tun Wong. He is the retired treasury manager for the city of Kelowna, but for the purposes of today, we're talking about a child in a Chinese family in the city of Kelowna. You were born, of course, in Kelowna, along with how many brothers and sisters?
I have 4 brothers and 6 sisters.
Yeah. The whole concept of being a Chinese-Canadian family, you were a pretty rare commodity in Kelowna, weren't you?
As far as I can remember, there may have been earlier families, but by the mid-1940s, we were the only Chinese family in Kelowna.
That's quite remarkable because there used to be a very large community that was just in a very narrow area, which we'll talk about a bit later. It was your mum who was the first member of your family to arrive in British Columbia.
Well, we understand she was. She came over in November of 1918 with her aunt, and her aunt went back when she got sick, and she was left behind with the Yip Sang family and served as a servant girl.
Now, Yip Sang is one of the guys who's known as a merchant prince in the history of British Columbia's early days.
In the publication of Saltwater City, he's referred to as one of the merchant princes. He was very wealthy by 1907. It appears that he was served as the foreman for acquiring Chinese workers for the CPR.
On a document which has got your mom's photograph on it on her arrival here in November of 1918, he must have signed so many of these that he just writes Yipso across the document.
It would appear so because the document was in possession of my mother, and that is her picture on the document.
I mean, that's a treasure because talking about your mother's and your father's history, you don't know very much about it.
No, Mom and Dad would never really talk about their past, and as kids, I guess we weren't curious enough and never did press them, so we don't have a lot. She destroyed all her old pictures and that I think were bad memories, and a lot of the documents she also destroyed.
So here she comes to a brand new land, 1918, to serve in this wealthy man's family. And how long did she do that?
She was there until she was about 21 years of age, and in 1930, she married Wong Bat, a fairly wealthy and successful merchant in Kelowna through an arranged marriage. He was quite a bit her senior. I think she was 45 years of age, and she was 21.
She would maybe have never met him prior to her arrival here?
No, she would never have met him.
Yeah. So she arrives here, marries him, and he's a wealthy merchant from Kelowna.
Yes, he was very successful. He had a general store, as we understand, that was about the middle of the 200 block on Harvey Avenue, on the south side of Harvey Avenue. He was reputed to have carried a lot of money on his person. And shortly after that marriage, about 2 years later, he was murdered in November of 1932.
Yeah.
And so at that time, Mom had 2 daughters by then. One was about, I think, 23 months, and the other was about 6 months old.
Now, would she have his resources to help her along, or what was her circumstances when she suddenly found herself widowed with 2 kids?
It's hard to know, and I think the comments that I'm going to make today are basically the recollections that my brothers and sisters have, myself, and other comments they may have mistakenly dropped by the way when we're discussing things. But whenever we ask them about it, they kind of clam up. They didn't want to talk about it.
It must have been very tough. I mean, for how many years now? That's like 7 years as a single parent.
She was single for about 5 years. She married my father in June of 1937, 5 years, just about 5 years after the murder of her first husband. So she survived on her own. How she did it is a mystery to us. She would never talk about it. As to his resources, we're not sure whatever happened to it, but by the time she married my father, she had lost basically everything. They did take the old house from Harvey Avenue. It was moved over to 245 Leon. There was a second house that she said she donated to sort of the Bachelor Wongs, which was about 2 lots over from 245 Leon, which was used for the single Wong clan to live in.
So at that stage, once she married your dad, I think we'll take a break here, and we'll come back after this break, and we'll talk about the Wong family, Tun Wong, and all his brothers and sisters, and the kinds of things that you did in Kelowna during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. We'll do that right after this break. Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Tun Wong talking about what a Chinese-Canadian family lives like in Kelowna during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Chinatown in Kelowna used to be quite large. In the early part of the 20th century, there are rumors to be as many as 1,000 people living in the area. But when you got there, how big was Chinatown?
Chinatown had become quite small. There were probably less than 100 people. It comprised of about half of the 200 block of the north side of Harvey Avenue. It encompassed the full western or the eastern side of Abbott Street between Harvey and Leon, and then it went up halfway up the 200 block of Leon Avenue on the south side only.
So your main street was almost the alley that ran up between the two.
Yes, it was very funny because the main street or the main thoroughfare for all the Chinese, they actually used the alley. On the south side of the alley, there was a wooden sidewalk that ran the whole length of all the buildings in that section. Then at the, would be the probably northeast corner of Harvey and Abbott Street was probably sort of the infamous City Park Cafe, which was renowned for its steaks and was quite a gathering place for the Caucasian.
This was the mixing location. I mean, there's something mysterious about a Chinatown, even as small as it was. But the best place for food on a Saturday night was the Chinese restaurant.
Yes, it appeared so. It was sort of a gathering place.
But it was infamous, you say.
Well, there's all kinds of stories that floated around, and I think there's so many probably half-truths in that, but it makes Chinatown more intriguing. I still read stories that it was rampant with opium smokers and such. I just read an article not too long ago when he talked about listening to the gurgling opium pipes. That couldn't be any further from the truth because they were tobacco pipes. And I used to sit and watch the older gentlemen smoke them. They loaded it up with tobacco and then sort of inhaled the smokes.
It was a water pipe, but it was tobacco they were smoking, not opium.
Right.
Right.
I think the elders in Kelowna really knew how to work the system. There would be 2 or 3 celebrations each year in which they featured the standard 10-course banquet. And the people with influence were always invited with their spouses, people like the government agent, the mayor. These people would come, and when we needed assistance or whatever it was, you could always rely that the way could be smoothed by these people. Yeah. So So in a way, there was discrimination, but there was also many good people in this community that assisted us in the years.
What was it like, I guess, being a kid in a Chinese family? What kind of control did your mom have over any one of you with as many kids in the family as you had?
Well, she had various things that I think all parents say, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And probably our family's no different. Most of us disobeyed anyway. And I think in particular was in sports. I love sports. She always told me not to participate in case that I got injured. She would not have the resources to pay for medical treatment. But
You played sports anyway.
I played anyway.
Yeah.
And when I came home injured, and they were never serious injuries, thank goodness, I would try and hide it from her. It wasn't that I was probably macho or brave. I feared her home remedies.
Give me an example of a home remedy.
Well, she had two special ones. One, the remedies were also very smelly. She used to have...
Distasteful, you didn't want to take them, right?
Right. She had one which was fried hare and vinegar, which she rubbed in onto bruises, and that was supposed to take the bruising out. The most common one is the remedy she had for sprains, and it was called Hedaiyon. And what it was, she had this special ingredient that she'd bought. It was wrapped in wax, and when she needed it, she would take a razor blade and take some scrapings off it, mix it with gin or rye whiskey to create an ointment, and then she would apply this with great pressure with her thumbs onto the sprained joint. And you would be screaming, and she'd calmly say, if it doesn't hurt, it won't heal. So the more it hurts, it's going to heal faster. And I always thought that was the way she got even for disobeying her.
And to also realize that any injury would result in extended pain, and so better to avoid the injury in the first place.
That's correct, yes.
Good stuff.
And
What did you do in this town? Now, I mean, your dad was, what was his industry? What did he have to do?
my dad was commonly an orchard worker and laborer, and for a period of time he also tried operating a Chinese restaurant, which wasn't very successful, and I think it was commonly because of the lack of command of the English language, on top of the fact that probably a shortage of working capital. Yeah. So we also, we had a very large garden at our house, which was 245 Leon Avenue. The garden was probably about 25 to 30 feet wide and about 100 feet long. And every spring we would have to turn the soil by hand. The first crop that he grew was actually radishes. And then he'd harvest those radishes and tie them up in bunches using wet bamboo strips. And then we'd wash all the radishes, stack them in these great big bamboo baskets, which were about 3 feet in diameter, 3 feet high. So you got 10, 12 dozen radishes in there. And then we'd cover them with a wet gunny sack. And overnight, and then on the weekends in the morning, we would then load the baskets onto a wagon, and we'd drag them over and sell them to Kaposi Grocery.
We got that wagon
Gordon's
right
Grocery.
here? I mean, is that the wagon that did that work?
That is the wagon that is that we used to haul it with. So
that would be, I mean, your job would be cultivation and digging it up and transporting and all of those kinds of things.
That's correct, yeah.
Your mom was also a major fundraiser for the family, and she made tofu.
That's right. Long before tofu became a yuppie food, she used to make tofu along with my dad. And they had imported a large grindstone, a granite grindstone from China. And then when they dragged the house over from Harvey Avenue, they actually added a kitchen and a utility room in which the tofu was made. So
that grinding wheel is at the museum today. That's been donated to the Kelowna Museum.
That's right. When we sold our house and moved, we decided to donate that grindstone to the museum. Okay,
I'm going to take a break here, be back in just a moment, because what did a What did kids do during that time when they were a minority in the city of Kelowna? We'll talk about that in just a minute. Welcome back to Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Tan Wong talking about a Chinese family in Kelowna, a Canadian Chinese family in Kelowna. This photograph here is a wonderful photograph. Is this all of your brothers and sisters in this photo?
No, my two older sisters and my youngest brother are missing out of that photo.
Now, this was just a day when City Park was your personal playground at that time, was just down the block, right?
It was half a block away, and Mom and Dad were always busy trying to make a living and do all the household chores, so it was the responsibility of the older kids to look after the others. So we always went and played in the park.
And look at this throng of kids there. Where are you in that picture?
I think I'm right in the middle.
Right there
here.
in the middle,
Yeah.
looking us to side one way or another. Why was this picture taken?
Well, a little story goes with that, and Mom had that picture in her album for years, but we really didn't know where it came from. Back about the early 60s when I was in articles, I had gone into the Commerce Bank to do some business for a client, and as I was waiting in the lineup, this very distinguished gentleman in a suit came up and asked me if I had lived in Kelowna very long, and I told him yes, I'd had, and he said I wondered if I knew anything about a very large Chinese family that used to play in the park. And I told him, well, that probably would be our family. So he asked me if I'd come into his office. I went in his office, sat down, he opened up the top drawer and he pulled out this picture and he showed it to me. And he told me the history of that picture. He was posted to the Commerce Bank in the late 40s, and he used to live on Abbott Street, and he used to walk down Abbott Street to work. And he used to notice this gang of Chinese kids always playing in the park. So one day he brought his camera and asked if we would pose for him, and he took this picture. And then he was posted out of Kelowna for a period of time and was reposted to Kelowna and eventually retired here. His name was Alan Gilroy, who was the manager of the Commerce Bank.
So that picture was just something that fascinated him. He took it. You never had it until that day you were conducting some business later on as an adult.
Well, Mom did have a copy,
Yeah.
but we didn't pay much attention to it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't later that Alan Gilroy gave me another copy of that picture.
And you recreated that, as a matter of fact, in 1997 with all of the same players as they look now.
That is correct, yeah.
Right down to where they are.
That was the day of my mother's funeral, and if you notice in the picture, there's one Caucasian fellow there.
At the end, yeah?
Donnie Marshall, who is a very good friend of my older brother, and Donnie is retired in Kelowna too, and that was sort of a gathering of the whole clan again. So we recreated that picture.
As a kid, what was your relationship with, I guess, the rest of Kelowna? Because every day in the newspaper, it seems to me, there was some question about the Oriental question or the Chinese question, trying to get rid of Chinese people out of, now that you've done all the work for us, send them back home. Did you sense this kind of antagonism from the white culture?
I know when I went to school, the first day of school, my dad said to me, "There's not a lot he can do for me, but I'll be probably subject to being called a chink and other teasing that goes on because I'm going to look different from all the rest of the kids." And he had taught me a few basic things of how to defend myself. And he says, it's up to you whether or not you wanted to take the teasing or stand up for your rights. So there it was, first day of school, grade 1, he drops me off at the school grounds at the Detart Elementary School, and probably petrified. Little blonde boy walked up to me and he said to me, "Are you a chink?" I never hesitated. I planted him right on the nose. So I feel sorry for the child now because I think probably he didn't mean anything harm by it. But I did almost fight every day for a year. And then shortly after that, I discovered that I was fairly popular because I did well in school and fairly athletic, and possibly because I probably never lost a fight, that I didn't need to fight anymore. It was probably an important lesson to learn that people will accept you for what you accomplish and your character.
The thing I found so remarkable is this big family, and coming from very poor origins, poor financial origins, your mom must have been overwhelmingly proud of how you all turned out.
Well, I think we're proud of her because she faced, I think, odds that are greater than anybody else did. But we never saw sort of a negative attitude from her ever. She was always ensuring that we would finish our schooling, I think because she never received a formal education and realized how important it was. She taught us a few basic things, even though she wasn't educated. She probably was wiser than most people. I think she had great intuition. She had a great dedication to the family, and I think she had a lot of common sense. She taught us to respect authority, and she also stated that you give an honest day's work. And I think that became really the building blocks that all my brothers and sisters built from. We've been successful, and it's because of her upbringing.
Right now you're working on a historical project of your very own in rejuvenating, renovating, or reclaiming the Chinese-Japanese component of the Kelowna Cemetery.
Well, actually, it's going to comprise of the total section of Section A of the Kelowna Cemetery, which was the original cemetery. The eastern half of it was the Asian section, and in this section there's about 900 grave sites, of which 400 are utilized for the Asians. It's been overgrown. There are some markers that have deteriorated, broken, and lost. And so in partnership with the City of Kelowna, the Kelowna Buddhist Temple, the Kelowna District Japanese Canadian Society, and the Kelowna Chinese Cultural Association, we're going to rehabilitate the whole section and also build a interpretive center in the Oriental theme that would be common to both the Japanese and the Chinese. We've received $79,000 now in grants from the provincial and the federal governments, and the societies will have to raise $20,000 towards that, whether it be in cash or by labor. We anticipate we will do a lot of the labor ourselves up there, particularly in creating, the markers.
Well, that's going to be finally a recognition of the Chinese community in the Okanagan, I guess, as a result of maintaining that area.
It'll be for all the Asians, both the Japanese and the Chinese, because they suffered just as greatly, I think, as we did.
Ton, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program today, and thank you for letting us hear what it's like to have been a Chinese kid in a Canadian city growing up. Thank you very much.